One of the most popular videos on my channel is this one about Frida Kahlo. I break down a lot of things that folks get wrong about her and her art. To the best of my understanding, outside of Frida herself, no one can be really sure 100% of her intentions, feelings, or what her art really means. I made that video because even though we can't know for sure how Frida would feel about being commodified, I would bet good money, based on her politics, she wouldn't be too thrilled about it. And seriously, stop doing this to Frida Kahlo. Link to that video in the carcancha down below. Check it out. With Frida being such an iconic figure, her art being so personal, and art in general being a thing you are supposed to emotion at, we think we can know the real Magdalena, Carmen, Frida Kahlo y Calderón. But can we? Even when stuff like biographical pictures exist? Probably not. Hollywood tried though. They tried. They really tried. The biographical picture, or biopic, Frida came out in 2002. I had not seen it until last year. I have a lot of thoughts about this movie, and today you're gonna hear about them. Let's start off with how this movie came to be. There had been talk about making a biopic about Frida Kahlo as far back as 1988. A woman named Nancy Hardin heard about Hayden Herrera's biography of Frida and thought it would make a good prestige Oscar bait movie. Back then, actresses Jessica Lange and Meryl Streep were considered to play Frida. Meryl is possibly the best actor ever, but that movie would have been a total disaster. In 1990, after one of Frida's paintings set a record at Sotheby's auction, there was renewed interest in a biopic. Madonna and Robert De Niro were going to star as Frida Kahlo and Diego Rivera in that version of the biopic. I am so glad that one didn't happen either. Madonna is a trailblazing badass, but she is not a good actress. Sorry, Madge. After that, in 1992 and 1993, director Luis Valdez was trying to get two separate Frida Kahlo biopics off the ground, both with non-Mexican actress Laura San Giacomo and the late great king Raul Julia. During this time, Salma Hayek, not crossed over in the US yet, was trying to get cast as Frida during these failed attempts. Salma, being a big fan of Kahlo's art, made it her mission to get a biopic made and to portray Frida herself. Salma got the woman who was the administrator of Diego and Frida's art, Dolores Olmedo Patino, to lend out said art for the movie. Salma got Alfred Molina to star as Diego. Salma approached Harvey Hamburger Dick Weinstein and Miramax to produce the film. Director Julie Taymor signed on during this time. Taymor has a lot of acclaim as a Broadway and Hollywood director. My favorite credit on her resume is Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark, the Spider-Man musical. A Broadway disaster so bad and legendary, there is no hard physical evidence that the musical actually happened. It only exists in Bono and the Edge's memory. They're the ones who wrote the music. One day we'll be able to see that. It's gonna be magical. In the year 2000, over at Francis Ford Coppola's American Zoetrope Company, they were going to produce two Frida's biopic starring Jenny from the Block herself, Jennifer still killing it at 52 Lopez. That production never got going. The production that did happen was the Selma and Miramax one, filmed in 2001 and released in 2002. Selma had been trying to get that movie made for almost a decade. That is dedication to a passion project. Sorry about my criticism coming up in a couple of sections, Salma. I'm so sorry. Before we get there, I do have to talk about Salma and the harassment she suffered with gross hamburger dick Weinstein. The harassment was not only sexual, but also straight up bullying and terrorizing Salma. Weinstein would yell at Salma for being ugly as Frida. He would demand the movie be sexier and have full frontal nudity. Every demand Weinstein had would be followed up with a threat to shut down production, or a threat to take away their budget, or a threat to fire Julie Taymor, or a threat on Salma's life. It got so bad that Salma had a nervous breakdown that affected her career for over a decade afterward. Knowing all of this, it's a little hard to criticize the movie too harshly. Feels kind of wrong to do, but I have a lot of thoughts. Nothing personal at all. This movie does things I don't agree with. You know what? Enough talk. Let's get into it. I'm guessing most folks watching this video either haven't seen the Frida movie or y'all watched it a very long time ago. Let's do a brief overview of what happens in the movie. No side commentary or review, just the events of the movie. Frida 2002 is directed by Julie Taymor, written by Clancy Siegel, Diane Lake, Gregory Nava, Ana Tomas, and an uncredited Edward Norton. Based on Hayden Herrera's book, Frida, a biography of Frida Kahlo. The main cast is Salma Hayek as Frida and Alfred Molina as Diego Rivera. The movie starts with Frida being taken away somewhere while being bedridden. While looking at herself in the mirror, Frida remembers her whole entire life. When Frida was in college, she first encounters Diego Rivera. Frida and her first boyfriend, Alejandro, are boning in the closet. Frida and her father are looking at his photography work. Frida dresses like a man in a family portrait. A bus crash happens, altering Frida's life forever. A Tim Burton-style art sequence. We learn the extent of Frida's injuries. 3 weeks later, Frida wakes up from the bus-related coma. We see the beginning of her painful bedridden life. Frida's father gets a canvas and paints for her. With determination, Frida is able to walk after everyone said she would never be able to again. Frida meets Diego for real. Frida shows Diego her art for him to critique. Diego tells Frida her art is good and she has talent. Frida and Diego go to a coastal elite liberal cuck party. Frida dances with the lady and makes out with this lady. Frida joins the Mexican Communist Party. Diego and Frida get married. Diego's first wife, Lupe, lives with them and cooks food for Diego. Lupe and Frida become friends. Diego cheats on Frida. Frida and Diego go to New York for a Diego art job. Collage art depicting a trip to New York. Diego cheats on Frida. Frida cheats right back with the same woman. Diego is working for Rockefeller. Frida becomes pregnant. Frida has a miscarriage. Frida's mother dies. She goes back to Mexico for the funeral. Diego paints Lenin and gets fired from Rockefeller job. Frida and Diego go back to Mexico, move into a two-house structure with a bridge connecting them. Diego cheats on Frida with her sister Cristina. Frida goes through a hair-cutting mental breakdown phase. Lupe and Frida bond further. Trotsky comes to Mexico to hide from Stalin and lives with Diego and Frida in Frida's family home. They visit one of the most iconic places in Mexico. Frida has an affair with Trotsky. Trotsky moves out and Diego leaves Frida. Frida goes to France for her first art show. Frida has an affair with Josephine Baker. Diego divorces Frida. Trotsky is killed. Diego is a suspect. Frida is arrested. Frida reconciles with her sister Cristina. Frida's health starts to really deteriorate. Her toes have to be amputated. Diego remarries Frida to take care of her in her deteriorating health. Montage of the end of her life. Full circle moment where Frida in bed is being moved to her first big show in Mexico. Frida dies. Spoilers. Let's start off positively. All the things I liked about the movie. This movie looks really good. You might be like, yeah, no duh. It's an important Hollywood production. And while that's true, in the last decade and a half at least, movies have started to look really ugly, especially after Marvel movies became the biggest game in town. Those movies look like muddy sludge, as most movies do nowadays. Most movies today don't have a strong color palette, strong visuals, or a strong aesthetic. The fact that this movie has a strong color palette, strong visuals, and a strong aesthetic is a breath of fresh air for my eyes. For a movie about an acclaimed artist, I would hope the movie would be as aesthetically pleasing as possible. Thank you, director Julie Taymor and cinematographer Rodrigo Prieto, for that. Another thing I liked were the mini Easter eggs, for lack of a better term, this movie had. There is a problem with this though, and we'll get into that in a moment, where if you're me and have done a lot of research on Frida, you'll appreciate it. If you don't know a thing about her or her life, then those mini Easter eggs will pass you by. You won't even know they happened. The best Easter egg is having Chavela Vargas sing to Salma as Frida toward the end of the movie. If you don't know, Chavela Vargas was a legendary singer-songwriter who had an affair with Frida Kahlo during a time when being LGBT was not done publicly. Earlier in the movie, a Chavela song, Paloma Negra, is sung over a montage. I haven't been able to confirm this, but allegedly, Paloma Negra is a song Chavela wrote about Frida. See? Mini fun Easter eggs, for those of us who know. The other Easter egg in this movie is the sprinkling of Frida's sayings and quotes throughout. Again, if you are familiar with her words, it's quite lovely how they are used throughout the movie. If not, sorry bre. Lastly, the casting and acting in this movie is very good for what this movie is, and we'll get into that in a minute. The acting is great. I appreciated the lack of method acting in this movie, unlike most Oscar bait biopics. To paraphrase Sir Laurence Olivier, you're an actor, just act. That is what Salma, Alfred Molina, and the rest of the cast did, and I liked it. They all did a great job. I hope that doesn't sound condescending because I don't mean it that way. They were really good. Now, on to my problems with this movie. Overall, this movie is fine. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen. It's not the best either. It's very middle of the road, which sounds like extremely faint praise, but considering the current internet zeitgeist hell we live in, where everything either has to be the greatest thing ever or the worst thing ever, to have a movie be okay, serviceable, mediocre, doesn't mean it was bad. It's good considering it's a biopic. If this was a regular movie, I would not say it was good. However, it's a biopic, so it's pretty decent, and there's nothing wrong with that. Let's get into some of the problems with biopics and the goal of this movie. The biggest problem this movie has is a problem almost all biopics have. The Frida movie and others like it makes the bold assumption that you, the viewer, know why the person this biopic is about is important. The movie never tells you why Frida is an important cultural artistic icon. You should already know that. You, the viewer, should have all the knowledge before going in, and the movie's only job is to do dramatic recreations of what you already know. If you didn't do your homework and at the end still don't know why Frida is important, that's on you. It's not the movie's fault. Like the Easter eggs I mentioned earlier, if you didn't know this singer is Chavela Vargas, the fact that she is in this movie means absolutely nothing to you, the viewer. That is just a random woman singing to Frida for no reason. The movie assumes you know, and if you don't know, Google it, I guess? Seems a little strange, right? The whole point of a biopic, in theory, is to tell you why this person was important and some things that happened in their lives. Most biopics don't do that though. The modern biopic is made because everyone knows the subject. In this case, Frida Kahlo was important. We all know that. Now, here is a long list of things that happened in her life. It is surprising and frustrating how many movies, this one included, don't bother to let you know why you should care about Frida. This movie doesn't let you know why Frida is important to Mexican history, culture, or art, like at all. The acclaimed artist in the movie is Diego. All the drama in Frida's life revolves around Diego. The reason she makes painting her career is because of Diego. If you didn't know any better, you'd think this movie is actually about Diego. We never know why Frida started painting. She just started painting. We never know what her inspiration for different paintings were. There is a little tiny bit of she suffered a traumatic experience, so she painted her feelings, but no real reason why she painted. How being a woman affected her art. How being Mexican affected her viewpoint. How important her political views were, especially toward the end of her life. How she was able to capture her physical and emotional pain on a canvas. This movie showed you none of that. Again, it assumes you know, and if you don't know, I would have liked to know why Frida chose painting to express herself. Her father was a photographer. Why not photography? Frida was a very articulate and funny person. Why didn't she become a writer? In Mexican culture, music is incredibly important to expressing all emotions with limited judgment or criticism. Why didn't she become a musician or songwriter? What could a canvas and paint convey that other mediums couldn't? This movie never told me that or tried to demonstrate why painting can be so powerful. Frida's art was very personal and powerful. I didn't get any of that in this movie. Now for a smaller problem that I feel is a pretty big problem. This movie is in English. The movie should have been in Spanish. These Mexican characters expressing themselves in English feels very odd and clumsy. If it would have been in Spanish, the characters would have expressed themselves so much better with more emotion than in English. In English, le falta sabor. For me at least, Spanish is the superior language to express feelings, emotions. Fight me in the comments. The other big problem with this and other biopics, they try to cram an entire person's life into a 2-hour movie. It ends up being a Wikipedia article on screen. This movie wants to tell you the story of Frida Kahlo, all of it, but it just ends up giving you a highlights list. Since it is trying to tell you so much, the movie ironically becomes unmemorable. By the time I'm done editing this video, I will have seen this movie 4 times and took extensive notes twice, and I still couldn't tell you all the stuff that happens. So much happens in this movie, and the only takeaway is, boy, Frida had an eventful life, didn't she? And that's about it. Again, there is nothing in this movie to tell you why Frida was a celebrated artist, icon, person. Frida lived an eventful life is the thesis of this movie, and that is a weak thesis. I would have preferred for the movie to have a focus. Frida was an artist? Focus on the art. Take the moments from her life that led to her painting the most famous and most important pieces of her collection. There's a wee bit of a scaffolding of a theme in this movie. The movie does show some points where Frida goes through something very painful and then she paints an iconic piece. Maybe pain leads to creating powerful art theme? While that is not true for all art and artists, it seems to be very true for Frida, the subject of this biopic. Pain, honesty, beauty, all the things that define Frida's art are underrepresented in this movie. Lastly, since this is a biopic trying to tell you as much information as possible, it reduces Frida and Diego to Latin stereotypes. Diego is a Latin lover type, and Frida is a sexpot/spitfire type. There is no real depth or nuance to their characters. Diego, a womanizer that can't keep it in his pants, even if his life depended on it. Frida, always yelling at Diego or seducing other people to get back at Diego. That's it. That's all they do. It's a wonder they got any painting done. Had this movie focused on a theme or the art, these characters would have more layers, more sides, more dimension than what is presented. Let's end this section on a positive note. For all the failings this movie has, it's an entertaining time. The story, or what is passed off as linear story, is easy to follow. You are never lost when it comes to who everyone is and what is happening. Like I said before, the movie is fine. It looks good and has good performances in it. For me though, it left a lot to be desired. Because I am a cinema scholar, let's break down a few technical things in this movie. These are things the movie does really well and I liked a lot. All the parts that featured Frida's art as a real-life frame were beautiful and really well done. This has been credited to Julie Taymor and her having a really good, strong artistic eye. For a movie about an artist with a very distinct artistic voice, I'm glad the director incorporated that into the movie. There are two instances where the movie got a little too artsy, maybe? I don't know if this was a good or bad thing, but it was certainly a choice. The first one is this weird Tim Burton-like skeleton sequence. Why is that here? This doesn't reflect Frida's artistic style. It seems out of place and serves no narrative purpose. This is under the technical section because storytelling-wise, everything in this movie has to help tell the story, set the tone, or serve the characters. If something falls outside of that, don't include it in your movie. The other instance when this movie made a choice was the collage sequence when Frida and Diego go to New York. Again, this isn't Frida or Diego's artistic style. This sequence could have been a more straightforward montage, but I guess because this is an art movie, they felt they had to do an artsy collage. These two sequences distract from the rest of the movie and serve no purpose other than to be artsy-fartsy. It's a rule of storytelling. It has to serve a purpose narratively, or else you should just leave it out. Other than those two instances, most of the movie technically works well. The story moves along at a good pace. The tone of the movie is consistent. There is no dissonance. The real-life part mixes well with the fancy art parts. This movie trudges along so well that most folks probably won't even notice all the problems I had with it. Plus, considering the nightmare that was working with accused rapist Weinstein and still having the movie be as good as it is, makes it a wonderful triumph. Good job, Salma, and all of those involved. As much as I have problems with this movie, I am glad this movie exists. As I have stated before in other videos, we, Latin Hispanic folks, are so underrepresented that anything and everything made for or about Latin Hispanic folks, we are obligated to watch and support. Otherwise, we will not get any more of it, ever. The fact that we got a mainstream, prestigious, Oscar bait movie about a Mexican female artist is amazing. That is something that should be celebrated. I need more of that, Hollywood. Also, as I have stated before, I have some really great ideas for a miniseries, a TV show, a movie. Hit me up, Mr. Frank Hollywood. If you are at all curious how I would have told Frida's story, I would have kept it simple. I would have picked the theme of turning pain into beautiful art and focused on what inspired her art. And of course, made it clear why Frida is such an important icon for art, women, and Mexicans. You don't need to tell someone's whole story in order to understand them as people. You need to focus on what makes them special and unique. Most likely easier said than done. If you want to tell a person's whole entire story, maybe do a 2-part movie or a mini-series. That would have given more time to do a super duper deep dive into a person's life. Frida 2002, as of this recording, is streaming on HBO Max. Go watch it and let me know your thoughts. Also, check out for yourselves some of Frida's artwork. I'll leave links to the pictures of her art below. They are really unlike anything else and are very, very beautiful. The vibrancy, pain, and honesty in her art is extraordinary. Check it out. And as always, salud, mi familia.